happy birthday. Hello, we're live. Hi, everyone. I'm Kapil, and I have with me Simon.
Hello.
It's Simon's birthday today, so happy birthday, Simon.
Thank you very much.
Great day to be doing this Facebook Live. So
Absolutely.
we're here talking about this amazing book that's coming out. We just found out, Joe, who's not here, she's the publisher for the book and also created this entire project. And she's just informed us that the book should be out first week of December, which is amazing. So let me tell you a little bit about the book. The book is called Being Fine, the Other F Word. And this book is a collection of really personal, vulnerable stories where men have gone through some kind of transformation, major transformation in their lives, and realized sort of mental health and well-being and being able to share our emotions and vulnerability, why that is so important. And especially during this time, COVID and mental health and well-being is such an important thing, especially amongst men, because we all probably know the stats around the number of men committing suicide because of not allowing ourselves to share our emotions and our feelings is way higher than like women or any other gender. So, and today we have Simon with us. Simon has written a chapter in the book. He's one of the co-authors, and Simon's going to talk about construction industry because construction industry has one of the highest rates of suicide amongst men. So we're going to hear from Simon about his story, what inspired Simon to write the chapter and be part of the book. So Simon, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, tell us about like your industry. Tell us about what inspired you to be part of this project.
Yeah, so looking at my book started, or the chapter started probably about 13 years ago, when I was stood in an empty flat after a relationship breakdown. And it tells my story of how I slowly slipped into that dark world of depression without really realizing it or experiencing it before. And I was quite keen with my chapter, as difficult it is when you've only got 2,500 words, to map out how that meandering journey sort of led to where I am now. And looking at statistics, I've been in the building industry, sort of carpenter, majority of my life. And you're right, Kapil, it's the suicide rate amongst men nationally is 3 times higher than women. And unfortunately, in the construction industry, it's 3.7 times higher than the national average.
Wow.
Two men a day in the construction industry are committing suicide, which is a pretty shocking statistic, you know. And my story, it tells a story of I went to that dark place, and fortunately I'm still here to tell the story. And also a pop-up mindfulness session that I started doing with builders in a lunch break, and the effect that had on my fellow workmates, which was hugely interesting. And then that's basically my interest moving forward is men. I mean, Kapil, we've talked about this in some detail about how we get men to open up and talk about their feelings, because the building industry, 80% is men. You've got huge stress related to part-time contracts. 50% of the people in the industry are self-employed, so haven't got those employment the stability. So yeah, and as an industry that, you know, they've done loads for health and safety, but nothing for mental health. It's getting better, but you know, that with the male macho facade that we put up leads to really worrying statistics, really.
And do you think, I mean, there's obviously a cliched view of the building industry and the construction industry, and especially in men, they're portrayed as a certain, you know, archetype in our culture.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, what, in your experience, what do you think are the key reasons why suicide rates are so high in that industry?
Again, whether it's right or not to joke about it, I allude to that in my chapter. We're quite practical men, and we've got the ability to be able to do that.
Right. So logical, rational, know how to do things, but not how to share our feelings.
We know how to do things properly. However, it's we have the opportunity, but it is a very stressful job. Like I say, we're away from home an awful lot. I was in the exhibition industry. I'm probably away 80% of my time working on site amongst other men. You work a lot of hours. You go to the pub after work. You wake up in the morning to the bed and breakfast, fried breakfast. You go to work. The banter amongst men, which is seemingly harmless. But if you're off kilter slightly, that sinks in.
What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're not on top of your game, if you're suffering with low self-esteem, should I say, like I did, and you get a bit of supposed harmless banter from the lads, you can take it personally, and if you're not venting that, if you're not able to communicate, it builds up over time, and then it just takes you lose your job, you lose your contract, you go through a relationship breakdown. Life's only got to change very slightly to get out of that rut that you're in, and it can have catastrophic effects, unfortunately.
That's so interesting, right? Because I think as men, pretty much in every industry, there is this pressure that you have to be, you have to like deliver on the job, and you can't be seen as sort of too emotional. And I'm curious, sort of, is it like a generic thing you think in construction industry that there is an image to be portrayed that you are a macho man? Is there such a thing that exists, or? Yeah,
I mean, Kapil, this has been really interesting because since writing the book, it's a very reflective process. Like I say, I've been on a journey over the last 12, 13 years. And haven't really reflected back to that time an awful lot until asked to write for this book. I now teach in a college, and I teach predominantly young men to become carpenters to go out on site.
Yeah.
So, I feel morally obliged to help these young men with their emotions and their emotional vocabulary. And you see that natural macho-ness within the classroom, and it's only going to build over the years. So I keep on bringing that, highlighting that within the class, and highlighting the mental health problems out on site. And I don't think our education system really. I'm slightly talking out of turn now, but I don't think our education system prepares young people for life. Yeah,
Mhm.
it gives us the qualifications and everything else. But money worries within the construction industry. It's the low paid workers, the labourers, that are predominantly pushing up the figures.
Yeah.
It's those people. If they've got more ability to be able to help with their finances, that may help. But yeah, very definitely an image, and I can see that playing out in even young men, sort of
Right.
going into the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. I think. I mean, kind of like there's a generic sort of almost like you can call it a pandemic
Mm.
amongst men. I believe that exists, and then there is like industries um, which are sort of exceptionally like where you have to portray an exceptionally macho image.
Mm.
So there's that, and it's interesting because I was reading a book a little while ago, and they were talking about this research where they looked at like generally speaking, young boys are told um, to sort of suppress their feelings.
Mm.
Like when we are sort of toddlers and infants, if we are showing too much sensitivity, naturally we are directed towards sort of handling those emotions and not showing those emotions,
Mm.
while that's not the case with the girls. And this is actually, there's been some research done around this. And when we look at the emotional intelligence and empathy, and part of what they found was that men, who've been conditioned that way,
Mm.
obviously grow up um, then not having that level of empathy, or the empathy is not developed enough for these reasons. And like it was definitely true for me,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that I consciously, throughout my life, I suppressed my feelings, chose to, because like, oh, as a man, I shouldn't be feeling that much,
Mm.
you know. And you said about the mindfulness classes, that so you do that now in the construction industry, the mindfulness
Not within
classes.
the construction industry. So I mean that came about. So I was in the construction industry. It got to the point of my depression, my dark thoughts, and I ended up going to see a doctor and then a
Mm.
psychotherapist. And he pointed out to me, I don't want to say too much about this book because I want people to go out and buy it. It's a really good book. But yeah, I was very lucky. I went to see a psychotherapist probably 4 or 5 times, and it just clicked. I'm just human. I'm
Mm.
just. It's just the human condition that I'm experiencing. It's not me. It's not my weakness,
Mm.
which I refer to in the book. And so I was able to start this journey of research. And Kapil, you've been there, done that, and got the T-shirt. It's just fabulous when you start this research. Yeah, so I've forgotten where I'm going now with this, but it's
The
it,
mindfulness stuff. So how?
yeah, the mindfulness. So my journey. Thank you, Kapil. My journey. Sort of 3 or 4 years later, I've come back into this country. I've gone to India. I've done a little bit of traveling. I've become a teacher. I'm teaching adult carpentry. I then go to India, come back, and I'm actually working back on site, because when you're a tradesman, you've always got that trade with you, so you're never going to be
Mhm.
out of work. So I've come back. I've picked up my tools again, and I've ended up working with the same people that I used to work with all those years ago.
Oh
And
wow.
I've gone back to site, and they're all saying, "Simon, you're different. What's up?" And they all knew I'd become a sound therapist, so I was playing gongs and doing sound therapy, which they all find highly amusing. And I was talking about my emotions and meditation, and absolutely got the mick taken out of me, and got the nickname of Fat Gandalf because of my beard and everything else. And however, a month of working on site, I was in the bedroom again. This is in the chapter. I'm working with a decorator, a 63-year-old ex-boxer, heavyweight boxer, nose to one side like this, tattoos all over his arms. A very scary, formidable alpha male. And he just closed the door and he said, "Si, how did you come to terms with, your depression?" And I went, "Well, this and that." He said, "Si, I'll go home and I'll just cry." He said, "I'm feeling that lonely." And all of a sudden he opened up, and then the labourer came in and we got chatting, and I said, "It's okay to feel bad. It is okay. It's not a weakness." And so after that I said, "Well, why don't we look into," for me, when I suddenly got the human condition, it saved me a lot of grief. So I was doing mindfulness classes, talking about neuroscience and the benefits of meditation in my lunch break on a piece of MDF set up with a marker pen, showing all these, as I've said in the book again, hairy ass builders were sat there talking about neuroscience and feelings and emotions. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah. And that's the seed that was planted within me to become a life coach, and sort of go down the avenue that I'm going down now.
Yeah.
So things can get better. We just need the opportunity. We need to listen to people.
I think it's like sometimes we I feel that there's a thin layer of how we should be seen in the world. And once we pierce that film, when we pierce that sort of layer, people are just dying to let it out. I remember this, I talk about in my chapter, this conversation where I was working with a group of men who were like in a men's workshop and couldn't express their feelings. And I asked them, the question is like, "Oh, how come as men, the only way we can describe our feelings is good and fine?" And then suddenly someone sort of stood up and said, "Oh, I feel like if I'm sharing my feelings, I will burden someone else." And that was just like such a beautiful moment. And it gave permission to everyone else in the room. And I think it's we need more of that. Like what you said about the mindfulness class and working in your industry, I think that is just such a beautiful example of when we open up to it. That probably saved someone's life. I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah. It's like a pebble in a pond, isn't it? We share kindness, and that expands, and that keeps on going.
Yeah.
That's what I want to try and do moving forward.
That's beautiful. So what's your plan? Like how the one question that I struggle with is, I know how powerful this work is. Like men's groups, working with men, just sitting there talking about our, not just like struggles, but like I think as men we're not very good at discussing our wins either. We talk a lot about like egoistic stuff, like I'm better than you, but not really sort of being able to share our wins with each other either.
And celebrate, yes.
Celebrate. And I just find this such a healing space when men come together and are able to talk about these kind of things. So I'm curious, what do you think? What are you seeing around you, and how can we create more spaces like that?
Well, that's a tricky one, Kapil, because I'm relatively new to the men's groups, and I've set up a men's group called the Cambion Tribe. But trying to get men to join that is really difficult.
Yeah.
That's really scary stuff, and you're going to be sat around in a circle doing God knows what.
Talking about our feelings.
Yeah, talking about feelings. But I've already seen that if you create that space and a man is open to that, what a beautiful healing process that is. So how we do that, Kapil, I wish I knew.
But I think this book is a great example.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's at least 15 to 20 authors out there that can do it.
Right.
So I challenge you, listeners. If you're a man, come and talk.
Right. And here's what I think will happen, that a lot of women will probably read this book.
Yeah.
And will ask their partners to read it. And my hope is that a lot of men read it, but also where they're not reading it is like, oh, this is not my thing. It's like a lot of women read it and make their partners, make the men in their life read it, so that they have they have sort of, some examples of what is possible, as opposed to just like being shut down and continuously running towards performance and whatever else we do as men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to, with my story, just trying to get through. It's your average man. It's not your business executive. It's not your hipster. It's not your labourer on site. It's people.
It's people, yeah.
Suffer from these things. Women suffer with depression, obviously. Sure. But what it is about men, I really don't know. And that I just hope this book opens up those discussions in people's living rooms, and it helps. It helps people reach out.
Yeah, and I think it's like my hope is that this book and over the last few years, I have seen more and more men's groups popping up, which is, I think, a great thing. I almost think that if you are a man, and if you're not part of a men's group, or if you don't have at least a few men around you who you can, on a regular basis, connect with and share your feelings and emotions and wins vulnerably, then there's something wrong. Like, I can almost guarantee that that's not right. And whether people realize it or not, I think that's just a matter of time.
It's quite interesting. I'm not in favour of this at all, but I certainly, looking back on sort of the tradesman's life 15 years ago, it was very common to go to the pub,
right,
straight after work, and you'd be amongst those men.
Yeah.
Then you'd go home to those different pressures of being at home. But I haven't done any research. It's only a thought that dawned on me when I was chatting to a couple of guys in our staff room today that are all old tradesmen. When we look back, it was Friday, a big envelope of cash, straight to the pub, and you talk about stuff there and then go on your own way. And I don't know whether it's that community of men might have helped then. Do you see what I'm...
Well, when you say might have helped, as in helped you personally?
No. Helped men in general, sharing that brotherhood of not being at work, not being at home, but that gathering of men at the pub, which doesn't happen now, thankfully, because that was causing so many more injuries on site.
Oh, is it now regulation? It doesn't.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Got it. I think so. My sense is that I think maybe not a huge amount of um, pressure being taken away, but I think the sense of community, the sense of being
Mm.
able to get together, and even if it's under influence, being able to share our feelings and emotions
Yeah.
must help. You know, like
Yeah.
I grew up in India, so there isn't a huge drinking culture there. So when I first moved here about 20 years ago, and in my job in Edinburgh, I noticed that that was the way people
Mm.
would socialize. You know, you finish your work, and on Friday you go to the pub, and then after a few drinks, um, you let go of some of the inhibitions, and that's when the emotions hopefully come out,
Mm.
and that gives you some emotional release,
Yeah.
and you can just like hide it under the influence. You know, you
That's a
can
very
like,
valid point. Yeah, I've not thought of that. Yeah, I'd like
right,
that.
it's like you let go of some of the inhibitions, and then next day you can just laugh about it, that oh
Yeah.
yeah, I was just drunk, or he was just drunk, but it,
Mm.
it at least gave you some kind of release.
Yeah.
So I do think that must help, and if it's stopped now, that must be adding to the pressures
Mm.
that people feel.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. So tell me, like, what's next for you?
So it's the men's group. I want to develop my life coaching because I'm working at a college. I'm a tutor at a college, um, but I've got an absolute passion for life coaching,
Hmm.
and I want to take that into small businesses and be able to offer a mental health wellness package for their staff, basically. So there is someone there uh, for them to talk to and for someone to listen to. It's not their boss. It's not, um, it's not a colleague, so they're not going to be showing their vulnerability to anyone at work. That's what I'm quite keen. How I shape that and how I take that into businesses, I don't know, but I do want to reach out to the small to medium businesses.
I love that. And do you think it's going to be mainly focused on men?
Yes, yeah. Um, Yeah, definitely. So I would like to go in to do a talk around mental health to all the workers. There's just ideas that are popping in the head, and I'm talking to a couple of companies at the moment, um, and they're beyond call basically,
Mm.
um, and not forgetting that there is an awful lot of companies and charities out there that you can call already. Obviously, the Samaritans, the Black Dog Charity that's been supported with this book. You've got the Lighthouse Club charity, which is predominantly for construction. So, anyone can text those charities at any time. Um, but yeah, I want to be that guy that helped me helping others. And that was just 20 minutes of me talking to my doctor and putting me on the road to a psychiatrist and getting that help I needed. Someone just listened to me.
Right.
There needs to be plenty more opportunities for that for people.
I love that. And I think, yeah,
Mm.
it's such a needed thing. So, all the viewers, whoever is watching this thing, if you have a company or if you know someone who you think Simon can help, put a comment, tag
Mm.
Simon, and I think I was talking to a company last year where they were talking about the fact that there's a lot more around women's empowerment happening in organizations now,
Mm.
uh, and it's almost like from a men's empowerment, or not empowerment person, but men's mental health is kind of not even talked about, because and not to say that we need to do less of women's empowerment, but there isn't any specific thing set
Mm.
up for men's mental health, like men's groups or where men can go and have conversations like that.
I
And
mean,
they don't even have any idea. Most companies don't have any idea how to
yeah.
even do that. So I think
What
what
I'd
you are
really
saying
like
will
to
definitely
build,
help.
it,
Sorry?
this idea has been banging around in my head for about a year now. You get a lot of men's groups and women's groups. I'd like to merge a couple of those as well, just so we can be witnessed
Yeah.
by women in a men's group, and we can witness women in a women's group, just so we can see
Yeah, I've
those.
tried those things. They don't go well. I
That's
mean,
right.
there's a place for mixed groups for sure, but it's more about sort of getting honest answers of each other's point of views. But what I've seen is that having like men's groups are usually, men would not open up if women were present in the same way.
Mm.
And same, I think, I don't know, but I've never been in a women's group, so I don't know. But my sense is that there'll be something similar in
Yeah.
the way women are able to express themselves. They might not be able to express themselves if a man was present. But maybe if Joe was here, she could answer that one for us. But I love the idea. I think there's definitely a space for mixed gender groups. And I think, like, in today's world, how we define gender is quite, interesting. So I usually say people who identify as men come to men's group, you know,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. We were 32 minutes into the interview. I think that's a good time to wrap it up. Do you want to say any last words, Simon?
It's creating space to listen to what people are saying, truly listen, is the message I'd like to get across. Listen without an agenda to answer, and you might just save someone's life. Definitely.
I love that. Not fixing, just listening. Beautiful. Thank you, Simon. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Again, the book, look forward to more announcements about the book in the coming days and weeks. We should have the book out first week of December. And we're also supporting the charity Black Dog through this book. And it would be great help. Share this with anyone you think can benefit from this message. And thank you very much for watching.
Excellent.
Bye.